So I think there's now broad agreement that look and feel, style, polish, design is an area where free software really needs to improve. And there's also a lot of excitement in KDE, in Gnome, in the various desktop Linux projects about bringing in that ethic of design and user experience. So in the last year, since we started talking about this, there have been a lot of projects and a lot of work kicked off. But we still have a long way to go in terms of really creating that amazing user experience. And the work that is happening at the moment is quite fragmented. So my hope is that over the next year, all of those different efforts start sharing and collaborating more efficiently. There are a number of elements of the Mac experience that I think are kind of good examples for us to follow. One element of that is thinking very carefully about the use of screen space and what's very efficient on small screens, what's very efficient on large screens. So that's one of the guiding principles for us, or forcing functions or constraints effectively for us in the design work that we're doing for the free software desktop, is how do we design in such a way that things that are very useful on small screens stay useful when you scale them up to large screens. And there's been some very positive work on the free software side, both inside X, which is the graphical display technology for the free software desktop, and with the emergence of things like Clutter as an animation framework. So we are seeing that the raw technologies become available to make the free software desktop experience be a very slick, very smooth one. Now what we're missing is the actual design work and some of the implementation of that. Well, I think both Gnome and KDE have consistently over the last year said that user experience is a key driver for them. I think that KDE was willing to make a big leap to create a new version, KDE 4, and while that has come at something of a price in terms of stability and predictability and even usability, right? The fact that they were willing to make that bold leap has put them in a position to do a whole bunch of new and very interesting things that make the system easier to use. Gnome was more reluctant to make a big leap. Gnome had a very strong commitment to evolutionary approach. But there is now a substantial amount of work inside Gnome to make a big jump to Gnome 3 with new, really radical new thinking around the shell, for example, the basic desktop experience. So I hope both Gnome and KDE will continue to keep design and user experience right at the center of what they do. There's been quite a lot of work to make commercial codecs available. So in cases where there are patent licenses or where there are only proprietary versions, increasingly we're now seeing it being possible to get those proprietary versions on Linux. In part that's because there's a huge amount of work out there for technology and media that is all based on Linux. A lot of the new high-end media streaming technologies or hotel video distribution systems and things like that are all built on Linux. So we're able to tap into that technology. I still think we've got another year or so to go before we can make media really smooth and slick. Yes, these sorts of media problems are cases where people get stuck and then they have no idea how to proceed. The shape of the desktop is discoverable. People can figure out how to achieve what they need to achieve. I think that's what you're saying. Whereas when they hit a problem with media codecs, they say, okay, Linux doesn't work. I can't get Linux to work. And there is some truth to that. There is work happening. All I can say is that there's work happening on both fronts, trying to figure out how we can get the codecs available so that Linux users can legally install them. Yeah, I kicked the tires on the beta. Someone showed it to me, and I think they've done very good work. It's a series of fairly small steps that they've taken on top of Windows Vista, but I think it, from a user experience, from a human interface point of view, the things that I saw were carefully thought through and made a big difference to the usability. Well, I think Microsoft's strength over Linux have more to do with the tactical position that they occupy in the market than their ability to innovate. At this stage, I think Linux has an advantage in terms of the ability to innovate. What we have to do is we have to figure out how we can turn that innovation into sufficient market share that we can generate enough money to really accelerate the work that we're doing, but also how we can channel our innovation, right? We have innovation going on in Gnome, innovation going on in KDE, innovation going on in Moblin, which is another big Intel desktop-oriented Linux initiative. These are all cool projects. How can we turn that into, how can we make sure that in 2010 the Linux desktop experience across all Linuxes is great? That's more complex than saying in 2010 will there be a great bit of innovation here or a great bit of innovation there. And so that's my focus, trying to figure out how we can line all of this stuff up so that in 2010 we deliver a really great Linux desktop experience.